Now it is episode 19 of the Monaghan Way with us here, the podcast series brought to you in association with Northern Sound and myself, Sean McCaffrey. Again, we're always looking at all sorts of things that's occurring and happening with us here across the region. And our focus this weekend is going to be back on hurling. It is a break from the football once more after the group games all finished up last week. One of the small ball game again, and it's a double header of championship finals to look forward to in the A.M. Sports junior and senior finals being played this Sunday in Clontibret. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by a proud Clontibret man, no doubt as well. It's his host club that's hosting it, and he is of course the sponsor of the competition as well, and we've chatted to him prior to the semi-finals. Aidan Morgan, thanks again Aidan, taking time out to have a chat with us here. And like myself, in the earlier part of this week, you were up at the launch night in Cloughan for the two championship finals that we're looking forward to. And, you know, credit where credit's due. Monaghan GA, they put a lot into hurling and a lot in the promotion of it because, let's face facts, it's predominantly a footballing county that we're in, but there's a lot of promotion goes into these county finals.
Yeah, Sean, and you hit the nail on the head there. And we're always, a lot of people, even in our own hurling circles, say we're the pure brother, but you're spot on. Like the county board, and I would see it at development squad level and through minor on the 20 teams and up into the senior team. You know, anything that's required, you know, you get, and there's no stone left unturned. And I would feel the backings there. You know, they facilitate great competitions as best they can and try and factor them in busy schedules. And they always try and accommodate that, and it can be tough, you know, when you're sitting down with the admin people there that look after the fixtures. It does be tough, but credit where credit's due. You know, we get competitions run off, and this weekend is set aside for the hurling finals, which is great. And Sunday's not far away now, so I'm sure the teams are anxious to get at it.
Yeah, it absolutely sells the game as well, and it's very evident even from chatting to a few at the football at the weekend. Obviously, it was noted, oh, there's a break coming up, and the talk was turning to the county finals. And listen, it's the usual suspects, and we'll jump into it a little later on that you're going to find there. But the fact that you've those maybe even outside of the game talking about it and questioning about it and looking forward to it, it means the promotion is working.
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. And you hit on it earlier there that it's my own host club in Clontibret, and it's never a good thing for your own club when the county finals are there. It only means one thing: we're not taking part. But I'm sure the other four teams have put on a good show for us. But yeah, you know, it is, and talk, because anybody I'm meeting this past number of days, you know, what's the finals next weekend, and you know there is a bit of talk around it. So you know, you'd be hoping you get a good crowd into Clontibret and to watch the two games. And you know, hopefully there's a bit of a spectacle put on, and we have two good competitive games, and you know, brings more attention to the game. That's what we really want.
Absolutely, and you did mention the host club Clontibret. We should maybe then focus on that. A fairy tale for the team that beat them. Latin sort of come back through development leagues to get back in as a senior team. And here they are then contesting a junior final against all odds. Nobody would have seen this coming. I'd even question maybe one or two within their own ranks the thought of reaching a junior final. But here they are, having dispelled of Clontibret in the semi-final.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned it to you the other night at the launch. It's not that long ago from the Latin people, you know, were reluctant to go into senior competition because the outcome was known nearly before the date. And you know, they were on the receiving end of a few hard defeats there, you know, over the last number of years. And we talked too about through, you know, back-to-back junior titles, now in the senior final. We talk about the hard times that Latin had and trying to get that senior team established. What a step in the right direction, getting to the junior final, you know, and they're starting to bring in young lads into the senior team in Latin there too. You know, Jamie Murphy, you know, there's a few lads like that are real talented, and that's really what they want. You know, the mix of the young and the old, and it's trying to sustain that because they're doing outrageous work. Latin in Latin with the juveniles. You know, they're on the 14 final. The under 16s are going okay as well. The under 12s are picking up silverware here and there. You know, so that pathway is great, but if there's nothing then for them young lads to progress into at adult level, what's it all about? So there is a pathway for all them young boys now through a senior team at the end of it. That can only be good for the game up in Latin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know in years gone by, a number of those that would have wanted to play the game and title to do so, they would have went out to other clubs. Carrick Macross would have benefited probably from a number of players there, as did other clubs. But it's brilliant to see, you say, the pathway that's there for them now. And even speaking to the captain, Stephen Brown and Shane Lavelle, the other evening, he noted to us and he remarked to us as well, when we done the preview night way back prior to the championship, their concern was, would they be able to field? He made no secret of that. He says that's just where they were. They knew they were at the bones of a panel, but he says the lift it has given everybody now, both within the panel and within the club and within the community, to know that they're running out on a championship final day now is something special.
Yes, brilliant. And it's progression, and that's, like Gabriel McQuillan put in so much work over the last 10 years in Latin, and now the fruits of his labour showing with them young lads coming into the senior team. But as I say, like, it would have been detrimental to them young lads playing with Latin the whole way up through and underage, and then falling off the edge of a cliff and having to look, as you say, elsewhere. What club do they go to then? But funny, I was talking to the Latin chairman at the launch as well, and like he was saying the difficulties that it poses, with the dual player and that type of thing. But I think if it's managed internally, the way I was looking at it with him was, the dual players, they're going out to keep it, their hurling skills touched up with the hurley in hand, more so than having to do fitness work or that type of stuff, because they're probably getting that with the football team. So it's managing that in house. But where it probably gets more difficult is if they're playing football for one club and maybe away to another club for hurling or other sports, then it gets maybe a wee bit harder to manage. But in house, it should be achievable. It should be something that clubs are striving to have. The dual player, the more nights they're within the club there, the easier it is to look after them. They're not playing maybe other sports in a sense where it's harder to manage. So there's great progression there with Latin. There's different avenues for players to go. They want to go into if they want to go and play football and play hurling, if they just want to play football, if they just want to play hurling. So there's loads of options for them there. Be great. It's great to see the dual players like Mark Trainer, and he was at the launch too. It is a prime example of that. It can be done. Maybe Mark would tell you it's not easy, but he does it, so it can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And indeed, I had a chat with Nathan O'Donoghue as well, Monaghan Harps, who Latin are facing. And he was a dual player in his time. And he just felt himself to give the full commitment to one or other. He opted for the hurling. I think I got the feeling of him that hurling was always his first love. But you made the interesting point there that if a player has the fitness, that can transverse between hurling and football. Hurling obviously just has the extra skill. There's no point saying any different, and that's what it is. And I know, even chatting to the lads on the night of the preview ahead of these championship finals, training was on. It was a particularly horrible, dirty, wet night, and they said they were going to the ball alleys. That's where they were going to be, indoors ball alleys, just honing the skills.
Yeah, and a week out from the county final, that was at the launch. You were a week out from the county final, and your fitness isn't going to improve any. You're keeping the eye in, you're keeping the touch sharp, and that's really all they'll be doing this week. They're not going to be doing a hell of a lot of training or running for that matter. It's just keeping the eye in, keeping sharp, working on tactics and how they're going to play and stuff like that, and naming the team towards the end of the week. And then you're into Sunday. That's it. So this week's just really keeping sharp, preparation all ahead of Sunday, and it's leaving it all out there then on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Latin, they do face a tough test. They're coming up against a Monaghan Harps team that would have contested senior finals in recent years, 2016. In fact, last time actually when Castleblaney wasn't in a county final, I was just looking, it was Inniskeen and Harps on that day. They have also contested junior finals as well, losing out to True in recent years also. So there's that element of experience in the big occasion there with Harps.
Yeah, and it is going to be an uphill battle for Latin. But having seen Latin against Clontibbert, they didn't give up at any stage, and got a soft kind of a goal before half time that kept them into it. So the battling qualities are there, and it's a bit of belief. But like on Monaghan Harps, and they have there's a nice blend across the field, And there's one thing about Monaghan Harps is they get the upper hand on you. They'll hurl away and they'll try and push on. But the longer it stays in the mixer, the harder it gets for them. If it's gone down the straight, it's anyone's game. But I'm sure Monaghan Harps will be fairly confident, as long as they're not overconfident. There's still 60 minutes of hurling to be played and there's a game to be won. So that really has to be their main focus. But They have loads of ability on the field. Ethan Flynn, if Ethan Flynn's on his day, he'll cause Latin trouble. There's no doubt about that. And Ethan can be direct as well, as well as driving a ball over the bar from 60, 70 yards. He can be direct too. So where they play him, Latin will want to have their homework done there. But it's a hard one to call because have Latin been tested? They probably weren't tested against Clontarrett, and have Monaghan Harps been tested? Probably not. So both teams was coming into it probably confident they can leave Clontarrett with a bit of silverware. But look, you'd be a fool for thinking anything other than Monaghan Harps would be favourites to come away with the title. But seeing Latin in the semi-final, I wouldn't be one bit surprised if they're not far away.
The one thing that they did chat about, and Niall McLeod was there as well as part of the management team, he did note it's been a 6-week layoff because of their league position. When they went out of the senior championship, they directly went into the final and they had to wait for Latin and Clontarrett to play out the semi-final. Now, they've got a number of challenge games under their belts and that as well. They would have had an opportunity to see Latin and Clontarrett, but that layoff probably is the difficultest thing to manage.
Yeah, it can be. It depends what you're doing in house. If you have, it's a long time now from the new that we're going to have no game, and that's maybe the disadvantage of finishing higher than the other two teams in the league. So you get straight through to the final. But it's how you manage that. As soon as Monaghan Harps knew that they finished above Latin or Clontarrett, they knew they were going to have a layoff. So it's how they have addressed that. What's the tempo like in training? As a challenge match is beneficial as a getting up to championship tempo on them, so that can only be an excuse if you let it be an excuse. So they have loads of time to make sure that's not an excuse for them and be well prepared for Sunday. They should be coming chomping at the bit, especially having that layoff, and no, for me, 6-week layoff, it is what it is. Get ready to go. You have a junior final to play.
Absolutely. And that's what it is. It's a county final. It's at the junior level. Obviously, they all started off senior. And then after the quarterfinals were played out, that's where the separation came. If you went into a senior semi-final, or you can back down into the junior championship, junior quarterfinal. It's a wonderful opportunity for these clubs to progress. We'll touch on it later on a bit through and how much they've progressed through this pathway. But for Harps and for Latin, this is a wonderful opportunity to round out a year at county level with some silverware.
Well, look, from Latin's point of view, it's a massive, massive, massive day. And Monaghan Harps probably disappointed they didn't push on in the senior end of things, but it is what it is. They're in the junior final now. It's there to be won. And the advantage, whoever wins it gets to play the losing finalists from the senior side to go on and represent Monaghan and junior. So there's loads at stake here. The winners potentially getting a crack at getting into the Ulster Junior competition. So there's loads on the line. But for both clubs, it's a huge day. It's irrelevant if it's senior, junior, or whatever. It's a massive day for both clubs, and I'm sure they're really looking forward now, counting down the days.
Yeah, absolutely. It is then the curtain raiser to the senior decider, and we mentioned them there. It's true, taking on Castleblaney. You never have a county final without Castleblaney, so you don't have said 2016, I think, is the last time they went there, and that rolls back to 1998. So they're just the bread and butter. They're the mainstay when it comes to championship final day. But true, showing great progression because they won the junior in 2023, admitted themselves disappointed not to have gotten to the senior last year, dropped back, but again, won junior once more, and that back-to-back junior has been positive progression to where they find themselves and can go in with a good chance, I would argue. I know Castleblaney's Castleblaney and the standards that they set, but True can come with a lot of positivity into this decider.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen them a couple of times this year, and I've had mixed views on them. There was one game I went and they kind of strutted through it and got over the line, fair enough. And then there was another game I went and watched them and I was fairly impressed with them, So they've kind of been up and down. In the semi-final against Inniskeen, don't get me wrong, they've done enough to get over the line. They beat Inniskeen fair and square, but there wasn't a lot in it. And it kind of tittered out to the end a wee bit, and Inniskeen was there. And if they had got a goal at the end, True would have been gone, but that's irrelevant. They got over the line as opposed to they're in a county final. But as you say, Shaw, it's progression. It's back-to-back juniors and then to a senior final. That in itself is massive. And there's great work going on down and through, up through the underage too and into the senior team. They have massive numbers in the senior group there. I don't know, they've 30 plus players clubbed out at each of their games there. And the addition of the likes of David Carville and Ethan Carville and Colin McKiernan and these boys, it has helped them a lot coming in. And like David Carville, I'm sure he's well into his 30s at this stage, but his aerial ability is unbelievable. His striking ability, 80 yards out, David Carroll drive it over the bar. He's a big, strong, physical lad. And, he's the target. True will be looking to, they want him on the ball and for puck outs and different things like that. And I'm sure Castle Blaney have looked at that as well. But Ethan Carville, I thought, was exceptional for True in the semi final. He stood in the pocket, he mopped up a lot of ball, kind of played maybe a wee bit of a Mark Trainer role there, but he got on so much ball, good distributor of it, and he was building attacks from deep in their own defence and nearly going through David, through the midfield area into the half forward line, getting David on the ball and getting scores from long range. So them three boys have been a big help to Through coming in there, but not alone that. Like even Conor McKenna, he's flying down there, and he has the miles clocked up too, and they've the option of Ronan Boyle coming in there as a man marker, young Oisin Hagan. There's plenty. There's a young McMeel lad there. Them boys have all potential, So I don't think True's going to fear anything here because they've been through the junior grade and they've got success there. This is where they want it to be. So they have to throw the shackles off, go out, give it a lash, and see where they go. The big thing for True is that they're still in a game at half time, and we know in previous years in county finals, games have nearly been dead and gone at half time. And the last time True were there, that was the case. The game was near dead and gone and closed at half time. So the big thing for them would be to get settled in nice and early, get the scoreboard ticking, and keep in touch and distance of Blaney in the first half. And then there'll be elements of doubt there. These boys just aren't showing up here for a game. They're going to give this a rattle. So it's getting to half time, it being competitive and seeing how they can push on in the second half. And that's the aim for True, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was 2020 when they were in that senior final in St. Cyrnach's Park in Clones against Castle Blaney. And just interesting in that regard, Aidan, I know a field is a field. We know the size of St. Cyrnach's Park and all the surroundings of it. Clonturbert, a great little club ground. I know they're not like me saying the word little, but it is. It's more confined. It's more in on top of you. The crowd is going to be in on top of you as well. How big of a factor could that be in the game plan that even True would be bringing?
Yeah, and it probably has. Like as regards personally the surface in Clonturbert at the minute is immaculate.
Yeah.
They're only hosting games. There's very little training on it now. Maybe the senior footballers are training on it, but the surface is second to none, and that's credit to the committee people down there like Colin Gormley and them boys at Keir McMahon. They're there maintaining the surfaces all the time. So that definitely won't be an issue, but I would 100% agree with you. There's more of a how do you say it? There's more of a sounding coming in from the sidelines than maybe in Clones. You don't hear the crowd there at all, but you would definitely hear that in Clonturbert. And as regards the venue, I think the majority of the lads are more than happy to play it in Clonturbert, and a lot of them like playing it in Clonturbert. Even for the set and the surroundings, the surface, everything, it ticks all the boxes for me, and I don't think anybody will have any issues with the venue whatsoever. But it is, you're looking to get a good crowd in and a good atmosphere there, and that drives the players and the teams on too, and get the most out of the occasion.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, one team that's used to this occasion, I've said it to Castle Blaney, just there every year. And again, talking to Mark Trainer, I would have said it to him. Their standards have not slipped. It's the standards of those around them. They've brought them up, so they have. And again, they're going in as hot favourites into this, and rightly so, defending champions. They were pipped the year before by Ian Skeen, interesting enough, over in Clones. And I know that would have hurt at that time. So they'll take nothing for granted. There's going to be no complacency with this Castle Blaney team.
I can't imagine they got caught before within a scheme that year and probably were a bit complacent that year. I can't see that being an issue. Now, on the flip side of that, I've been to a number of their games too, and they've just stuttered along nearly, without having to blow any team away, but they're still picking up results, So what Castle Blaney shows up on Sunday is that a Castle Blaney team that's coming with hunger and desire to really get over the line and put a big performance in, or is it a Castle Blaney coming that we're good enough to win this regardless of what's through at us, and that just mightn't be good enough. But I think from the semi-final against Carrickmacross, Castleblaine's half-forward line accounted for about 10 points, the first 10 points of the game in about 10, 12 minutes. And that was Niall Garland, Thomas Hughes and Leo Maloney. So that line will take serious watching from Blaney. Leo with his accuracy, not from place balls, but from open play as well. Thomas Hughes is direct, good on the ball. Niall Garland everybody knows what Niall brings. And that half-forward line is a big line for Castleblaney. And if they're on form and they're ticking and they're going at through, they'll cause trouble. There's no doubt about that. But for me, there's two men that's really important to Castleblaney. And one was at the launch the other night is in Mark Trainer. Mark just makes Castleblaney tick. If he's on his game, the team just seems to play well. And I don't know what position Mark Trainer plays. He seemed to this last while as number 5 or 7 on his back. He maybe plays a wee bit deeper. You could see him out around midfield, and he could push forward and maybe get on the scoreboard too. He's nearly like a quarterback. He's sitting in the pocket and he's picking up them balls. He's an outrageous reader of the game. He just seems to know where to be, but his distribution's off the charts. He can always seem to pick the man out. So Mark will have a massive bearing on the game on Sunday, as well as the half-forward line. And you have Conal McHugh and Declan Hughes in midfield there, well able to get forward too and get on the scoreboard, and always options around the middle third. So, Brian McGuigan's another lad. My God, he's like a fine whiskey or wine. He's just getting better with age. He's still a handful of bangers. And if he's one-on-one inside, 9 times out of 10, he comes away with the ball. So for me, Mark Trainer and Brian McGuigan, them two boys are on song on Sunday. They're hard to handle. And I know Brian didn't start against Inniskeen in the league final, maybe saving the legs for Sunday of that. But them two boys are big players for Castleblaney. But they're the standard bearers. They, as you say, Sean, undoubtedly will go in as favourites. But it's up to True to raise and take the challenge to them and see where it brings them.
Yeah, well, and that's the only thing. Like, True will go into this, and the management will be mindfully aware of where the primary threats are on the Castleblaney team, and I suppose vice versa. Castleblaney will as well. But I always get the impression that Castleblaney worry about nobody but themselves, and True might argue that too. But it's not an argument to stand up. They have to focus, as you noted there, Mark Trainer, that half-hour line of DJ Leo and Thomas Hughes, Brian McGuigan inside. It's important to take all that in. And it was interesting. Mark Trainer was actually injured the year that they lost in the skate. I recall they brought him on, and it was a half Mark Trainer on that day as well. So it goes to show, as you said there, how big a part he plays with this team.
Oh, absolutely. He's massive. And Mark, from somebody from the outside looking in, Mark's gone through the motions, but the amount of grass he covers over 60 or 65 minutes is frightening, and it does, if you're sprinting up and down the field with zero involvement or zero input for the team, you're no good. But Mark's going round at his pace, dictating what's going on, reading the game, getting into the pockets, picking up them loose balls and distributing and setting up scores, and for me, that is massive. But True have to, if True go in with an open hand and go, boys, we're going man to man here, and we're going to win this, I'm not sure that'll work. You still have to be mindful of the danger men for Blaney, and they have quite a few. But then here, they have to be looking from their own point of view. Where can we expose them? So we bit of homework to be done, and I'm sure they have done that, and I'm sure the management got a look at the league final last Sunday. But definitely for me, get the matchups right, see how it goes then, and maybe some adjustments throughout the game. But it's going to be hard for True to curtail Blaney for 60 or 65 minutes. But if they can get their matchups right and go at it with the right attitude, who knows?
Yeah, it's disrupting supply nearly is sometimes the best. You'll not take a good player out of the game, a quality player out of the game, but if the quality player's not on the ball or getting the ball, disrupting that supply can be the key.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they give Mark Trainer loads of time on the ball, it's not going to end well with them. And Mark he can play it short. He can go direct to the inside men. Whatever, and he can have a crack at it himself. So for me, he's one man True has to pick up and keep an eye on, as along with others. There's no point in forgetting about the rest of them. Thomas Hughes is a serious young talent that poses threats from 50 yards in, and Thomas, he can go left or right, he can go direct, he can beat his man, he's physical. Niall Garland's the same. As I say, Leo the same too. Leo's great from distance, striking ability is brilliant. and place balls. You leave Leo a ball anywhere inside 70 yards, he rarely misses. So, the the the, the discipline for through is going to be a big thing too. Keep the discipline. Don't be giving away silly frees. But it's getting a happy medium from your discipline being controlled to your aggression being, high end. So it's getting all them things right, which isn't easy.
No, absolutely. It's interesting the difference sometimes between football and hurling, and you have quality players in both, but the quality players in hurling is the ones that will always dictate the game. The wristy hurler, maybe so to speak, or as you noted, the long distance hitter, or the player that can come off the right or the left will always dictate a game in hurling. In football, it's a more even spread. In hurling, and I'll go back to the fact that it's such a skillful game, the more skillful one or two players you have on your team, the better off you are.
Yeah, absolutely. But then on the flip side of that, the worker, the man marker that maybe hasn't the same skill set as some of the other players, he's vital too. He's
Mm.
maybe picking up a key man, but his hurling ability isn't at the level of some of the better players. And then people's key as well. Like you have your sticky corner back that's maybe not going to light it up skill wise, but he'll keep his man to a point or two from play, and maybe a key man. But, it does, and you're looking for your key men to stand up and shine, but you're also looking for your other lads to row in behind them too and give, contribute whatever they can. But it'll take everybody. One thing I did note from through, they've a bit of a bench to spring in. Like, they'd Ronan Boyle on the bench there and Oisin Hagan. Them two lads made an appearance in the semi final. You know, some man's causing a bit of trouble on Sunday for True. Ronan Boyle, if he doesn't start, that is a serious option to come in. And Ronan a pet of phase, he's a man marker. He's strong. He's physical. He's a good reader of the game. So some of the Blaney boys are causing a bit of trouble, and Ronan doesn't start. He's a great option to come in. Like an Oisin Hagan, he's only a young lad out of maybe he is under 20 again next year, and he was in with us in the senior panel. His aerial ability is fantastic. Oisin, big, tall, strong lad, well able to get up and well able to hurl and take a score from distance. True, maybe probably didn't have that in years gone by, but to have options now coming in off the bench, half time or 5 minutes into the second half to have lads to come on, like Pierce McKenna only come on in the semi final. So, even them three lads, they're coming in, they're freshening up the squad, they're not weakening the 15 in the field. So that's a big thing for True as well, I would feel.
Yeah, absolutely. You touched on it there, obviously being part of the senior management team at inter-county level. You're very familiar with all these players around all these clubs. And again, it's a wonderful platform for you now as well to see these players on the big day performing to their very best and doors opening maybe for others to come in and join.
Yeah, that's it. And look at what the senior set up. There was always an open door. We never turned anybody away. Anybody who thought they were at a level that they could offer something to the senior team, we welcomed it with open arms, and that's no different. So it is good, and you're getting out and you're looking at maybe different aspects of players. Like one lad, and I see we played him with Monaghan in defence this year was Pádraig Malone, and I see him now. He's adopted that defensive role with Castleblaney. Pádraig would have always been probably in the forwards, but we've seen his athleticism and his speed out of the blocks and stuff like that would maybe offer us something in defence. So Castleblaney have obviously felt the same that we've felt, and I'm playing him in that role now. So you maybe do see different things from different players, or players that we hadn't in, and maybe, or players that had been in, and maybe a way that we feel offer something different now, or that type of thing. So it's a fantastic opportunity to see so many players in the one day, leaving everything on the line, and who's up to it and who's not, and maybe lads that is in with it maybe is a bit off it, but you still know what they can give. But you could have a lad that's maybe not in with the senior setup that has an off day on Sunday, but you know him from before what he offers. So every day just doesn't go right for every player, but it's a fantastic opportunity to get to see everybody. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, we have to side with the favourites, no doubt, in both games. Monaghan Harps in the junior, Castleblaney in the senior. If there is to be a surprise, where could we see it, the surprise result?
I think if the surprise is going to come out anywhere in the senior game, I think. But that's no disrespect to Latin, but I just think if there is a surprise, I think that's where it's going to come from. But I know these Latin boys, and they're dogged and they're rugged and they're hardy men and they don't lay down. That's a great attribute to have, because if a team gets on top of you, some team maybe gets into the shell a wee bit, and then that team dominates and drives over the top of them. But I don't think that's going to happen to Latin either in the junior. So I can't really pick one or the other in a sense too. You know, it could set up for an interesting day if we have a shock in the junior first. Everybody wondering how the senior's going to go.
And that's it. Isn't that the great thing about it, finally, Aidan, as well? That's why we're talking. Listen, as I said, we sort of know in our own heads, the back of our heads, the favourites that are going in, but we're not going to be surprised, or maybe we will be surprised if there is a shock result in either. It's the unique pairings of the two finals as well that's making this just something to look forward to.
Yeah, that's it. And, if it was Inniskeen and Blaney back in the senior final, nobody would probably bat an eyelid. But the fact that True is there and they're progressing along nicely, the fact that Latin showing progression is fantastic. And you say two novel pairings, two teams that True have been there in the past, but it's not a regular occurrence with them either. And some of these boys, it'll be their first county final and a massive occasion, but no, it is, and it does be hard to call. And me and you would have said it before, what it would predict, what would happen one other day, and we were saying what would we know, but you don't actually know. And it's all on the day. Like, you take in the junior game, if Latin go out and get off to a flyer, and the game develops in their favour, it's hard to call that back. And the same for Monaghan Harps, so each team will be looking a good start, no different in the senior game, and all True have to do is keep that scoreboard ticking and build a bit of belief in them that they can get over the line. But it's gone out and hurl, the players probably need to blanket out that there is anything on the line. It's another game at 60, 65 minutes. Yes, there's something on the line, but we'll have to go out and perform.
Absolutely. Well, we're looking forward to those performances. It is the AM Sports double header of championship finals. Junior at 1:45, senior at 3:45. O'Neill Park, Clontibbert is the setting. And of course, from a Sunday sports perspective on the local radio station Northern Sound, we will be there to bring you coverage of those games. That is another Monaghan Way episode with us here as well. Episode 19 indeed. And don't forget, as always, you can check back on previous episodes. Yes, some of them do be previewing and reviewing from a footballing perspective, but there's lots of other guests in there for you as well to check in on.